Good evening, everybody. It's the October 18th, 2018 Murray City Planning Commission. My name is Travis and I'm the Chair of the Planning Commission. Up on the dais tonight we have Scott Woodbury, Maren Patterson, Phil Markham, Lisa Milkevich, Sue Wilson, and Ned Hacker. And then from staff we have Zach Smallwood and Jared Hall, and then we also have Bryant Farnsworth over in the corner from the attorney's office. We have a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the meat of the agenda. First thing I'll ask is if you have cell phones, please silence them or turn them off. If you need to take calls, we ask that you take it out in the hallway, please. If you're here to speak to an agenda item this evening, when we open that item up for you to speak, we'll have you come up, state your name and address for the record, and we'll let you speak for 3 minutes. If you're representing a group of individuals, we'll give you 5 minutes. That's about it. So our first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the October 4th, 2018 meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
Yes.
Other than the minor text changes, do we have any additions to them? Okay.
No.
Entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the Thursday, October 4th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Second by Mr. Hacker. Call for, actually, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Item number 2 is conflicts of interest. Anybody have any conflicts of interest with the agenda items this evening?
No.
No. Okay. Item number 3 is approval of finding of fact. We have Club 48 that had a certificate of appropriateness for a major alteration for an outdoor patio. I don't have their address, sorry. And then Joyful Learning that had a conditional use for in-home preschool at the property address 1228 East Castle Creek Drive. And we have O'Connor that had a conditional use for an accessory dwelling unit, property address 6102 South Clear Street. And then we had the skin therapist seeking a conditional use for esthetician services at the property address 308 East 4500 South. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
Any changes, omissions?
No.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the finding of fact pertaining to a certificate of appropriateness for Club 48 for a major patio expansion, Joyful Learning, a conditional use permit for them, an accessory dwelling unit for O'Connor, and the skincare specialist conditional use permit as well.
I have a motion by Mr. Markham, second.
I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Woodbury. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 4 this evening is Q&A Auto Sales, seeking a conditional use for auto sales business at the property address 4195 South, 500 West, units 75, 76, 79, and 80. Is the applicant here for that this evening? We'll have you up in just a moment. Mr. Hall.
Thank you. So as you said, you read the unit numbers, 75, 76, 79, and 80. Most of the time in this is an industrial park we commonly refer to as a group as GARCO. The units in question are just down in the southwest corner, but I can't make it light up. There you go. Southwest corner building. It's all 4 units kind of encompass that building. It is in the MG zone. We do allow auto sales in the MG zone with conditional use permit. The applicants are going to use all 4 units together. The walls have previously been removed, so the only walls that are left are for an office and kind of a lobby area, break room. There is a small bathroom as well, but the rest of this space is open. So that space will be used to keep cars for sale indoors. There's parking stalls around the outside as well, 7 of them on both sides of the building. They do need to be restriped a bit, and we do need a handicapped accessible stall, an ADA compliant stall. Striped. They can do that pretty easily because, as you can see, these areas that indicate no parking, there are overhead doors there where they'll be bringing the cars in and out, and we've allowed handicap stalls to be striped with the car space here and then space hashed for no parking next to it. That can be used that way, so that should be easy to do. Fifth West here, and then there's landscaping in front of the building. There's a little bit of space, as I met on the site with the applicants as well, that they could put a car or 2 for sale. Displayed for sale facing Fifth West in these 2 areas, not more than about 4 cars. So we've asked them to limit that in the conditions of approval, and no more than 15 cars for sale on site. Generally, that's one of the conditions of approval we've also suggested. This is the site plan. Again, you can see there's a lot of cars on the back side. The owners of the complex have committed to the applicants in this case that they'll remove those, and also this is a shed that was put there that'll be removed as well to make sure the parking is available and cleaned up a bit. You can see the landscaping out here. We talk about that in the report. Landscaping actually complies number of plants and things, trees that we require for the under 17.68 in our ordinance. It actually complies right now, so as long as the landscaping is maintained, that'll be acceptable without any changes. We have asked them in the conditions as well to maintain the park strip better. It's mostly dead at this point, needs to be watered and taken care of. But they've committed to be able to do that as well, not a big deal. Just a couple of photos we took of the site. You can see in the upper left-hand corner here, this wall facing Fifth West is all covered with ivy. The landscaping is in front of it. That's more visible right here in the other picture. This is the south side, 2 of those bay doors, and the north side, 2 more bay doors there. That's that little shed building we talked about that'll be removed. And those cars will be removed as well. Those are parking spaces that the applicants need for their customers and employees to be able to come and see these cars. Most of them, like I said, will be inside, but there will be a few for display outside. Staff is recommending approval with these conditions. They're the standard kind of conditions that we generally apply to these businesses, with the exception that we are asking that the display of the vehicles not be more than 4 and that no more than 15 be part of the sales at any time. So, anything from, any questions for staff at this time?
Questions?
Thanks.
No? All right. If we could have the applicant come up, we'll just have you state your name and address for the record.
My name is Athir Arkadi. The address is 4195 South, 500 West, Unit AD, 79, 76, and 75.
Perfect. Have you had an opportunity to review the 10 conditions?
Yes.
And you'll be able to comply with those 10 conditions?
Yes.
Do you have anything that you'd like to add to the presentation?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Pretty standard.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is open for public comment, so if anyone would like to speak to this issue, we just ask that you come up and state your name and address. And seeing none, we'll close the public comment and bring it back up here for discussion or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit to allow the proposed auto sales business at the property addressed 4195 South, 500 West, Units 75, 76, 79, and 80, subject to conditions 1 through 10.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury to approve a conditional use permit to allow the proposed auto sales businesses at the property address 4195 South, 500 West, Units 75, 76, 79, and 80. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to second that motion.
Second by Ms. Milkevich. Call for a vote, please.
Mr. Woodbury,
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Nate.
Yes, motion carries. Good luck with your business. Item number 5 this evening is Cyril seeking a conditional use for an accessory dwelling unit at the property address 6489 South Castlefield Lane. Is the applicant here this evening? All right, we'll have you up in just a moment. Mr. Smallwood.
Great. So this is, like you said, conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit. It's right here located on Winchester and Castlefield Lane. You'd be familiar with the property as it's next, fairly close to where the Advocates just recently completed their building. It is in the R18 zone, which allows accessory dwelling units up to 1,000 square feet or up to 40% of the home. This property is proposing a 903 square foot unit with an overall dwelling unit size of 4,975 square feet, which equates to about 23%. So it definitely meets those standards. So it's located in the rear, and Jared's much better at doing this little laser thing than I am. So forget it, you don't get to see it. So, you can see in the yellow hashed items there, that's where the proposed ADU is going to go in the basement. That staircase is at the rear of the property that will go down into the basement there. It is proposed to be a 2-bedroom unit. And then this just shows kind of a little enlarger sized of the family room. They do have access to the electrical and things like that are required through the standards. Couple photos that I took, you can kind of see on that top left picture, those are where the parking spaces would be provided. It's on the side of the house. So with that, we are recommending approval subject to the 9 conditions. They're pretty standard. We do require that affidavit to be filed before occupancy could be allowed there.
Oh, you have 2 number 6s in the packet. That's where it's at.
Aha, my bad.
True.
Sorry. Keep going.
Nope, you're good. I was just asking if you had any questions for
Any
me.
questions? Nope, I think we're good. Okay. All right, if we could have someone from the applicant group come up. And then again, we'll just have you state your name and address for the record.
John Ashby, the general contractor, 6489 South Castlefield Lane.
Okay, have you had an opportunity to review the 9 conditions?
Yeah.
And you'll be able to comply with those 9
Yep.
conditions? Do you have anything that you'd like to add to the presentation?
Nope.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, there you go. If anyone, we'll open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to speak to this issue, just ask that you come up, state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none, we will close public comment and bring it back up here for discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit to allow the accessory dwelling unit at the property address 6489 South Castlefield Lane, subject to the 9 conditions.
All right, I have a motion by Mrs. Patterson to to approve a conditional use permit to allow the accessory dwelling unit at the property address 6489 South Castlefield Lane, subject to conditions 1 through 9. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
A second by Mr. Markham. Call for a vote, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
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 How about Mr. Nay? Mr. Nay. Yes. Motion carries. Good luck. That guy. Item number 6 this evening is AFG Auto seeking conditional use for a vehicle sales business at the property address 4651 South, 500 West, unit number 10. Is that applicant here this evening? We'll have you up in just a moment. Mr. Smallwood.
Great. So this is located just off of 500 West. It's also called Riverside Drive, a little bit south of where Lowe's is on 4500 South. The applicant is proposing, man, how do you get this to work? It's fine. It's that bottom right.
Mr. Hall, would you please take a moment and show him how to do that?
That's all right. I know it's an iPad. You'd think it'd be easy. So it is
Bring
in the
my
MG
4-year-old to show you next
I
time.
know, pretty much. So it's in the MG zone, which auto sales is a conditional use there. So you can see here it is in that furthest west side of that building. This is kind of flipped. The south is at the top of the screen. This is their proposed floor plan. It's a quite open building. We are limiting the any auto sales to inside the building because there's just not enough parking to provide outdoor sales there. Here's a couple photos of inside. It's quite big. You can definitely fit multiple cars in there. He's anticipated not to be selling more than I think like five a month. And then that's the outside of the property. So we are recommending approval subject to these 8 conditions. I do want to state that we are requiring the property owner to put in landscaping, and that will be the case in the next 2 units that will be coming before you as well. So, any questions for me?
Zach, are they operating currently?
I believe they are. Are you operating currently? Yes.
How long have they been operating?
I-
We can ask the applicant.
Okay.
We'll just ask the applicant.
But they currently have a business license for auto body work.
They do have
So
a
they're
license for auto.
operating under that
So,
license.
so they're operating auto body, but then they're just adding the sales?
Yes,
Okay.
that's
That's-
correct.
Thanks for the clarification.
No problem. I apologize.
You know, we just don't like it when people are operating before they get it all
For
done.
sure.
So that's why I wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
If we could have the applicant come up, have you state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Samiola Sharifi, and my address is 4651 South, 500 West, Unit 10.
Okay, have you had an opportunity to review the 8 conditions?
Yes.
You be able to comply with those 8 conditions? Okay, do you have anything that you'd like to add to the presentation?
Good.
Any questions for the applicant?
Not a new order.
Pretty standard.
Okay, there you go. This is open for public comment, so if anyone would like to speak to this issue, come on up. State your name and address, please.
My name is Randy Brimhall. I'm from Cherry Street Plaza, which is right across the street, 4617 South Cherry Street. I made up some pictures showing a condition. Can I show those to you? I made a few of them up.
Certainly.
Yep.
There's only 3 pictures there that shows what's going on there. I kind of represent the building across the street where there's 5 businesses called Cherry Street Plaza, and there's a forklift company, a roofing company, and a furniture manufacturing company there. And let's see, we don't have any objections in granting the approval for AFG Auto Sales and wish them success. We do however, have some concerns that affect our business on Cherry Street directly. We're directly on the east side of the street from them. When Riverside Plaza was built, there was a solid chain link fence that encloses Riverside Plaza, making the only access from Fifth West. Sometime between now and then, the fence has been cut and a gate has been put in for access for Cherry Street. This allows Riverside's workers and customers to park on Cherry Street. The problem we have now is the car repair companies now operating on Riverside Plaza are using Cherry Street to stage and store their cars as part of their daily operation. Every day, between 1 and 12 cars that are in various working parts of stages. They go through the fence, they drive all the way around, walk through the fence, go back in their business, and the cars are changing all day long. And we've got some wrecked cars, some that are being worked on, some are okay. They drive around the park on the damaged cars, and we'll see them change. We'll see them walk through that gate maybe 10 to 20 times a day, where the fence used to be closed, where they put in a gate. We feel this is a traffic hazard, and the damaged cars make Cherry Street look like a little bit of a junkyard. We wish them well, but we would like to make sure there's a stipulation that they don't. In fact, I would like to see the fence restored on Cherry Street, on the back side of Riverside Drive, or Riverside Plaza, so that they can't continue to do this. But that's what I would like. But I've got no objections to them doing the business. We just don't want junk cars and stuff up and down the street. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing no one else, we'll close the public comment. Mr. Smallwood, let's have you come back up for a minute. Can you also go back to your street view of the building, or your building view?
That one?
Yeah, that's probably great.
Or that one?
So,
Either one.
I think either one actually represents
Okay.
the property as a whole. Just want to kind of get a better sense of what's going on with Cherry Street. Okay, so first off, on-street parking on Cherry Street, that would be prohibited for the storage of vehicles,
For the
correct?
storage of vehicles, that's correct.
Okay, and what would be the neighboring property owner's recourse on that?
I believe they could call and report a concern online, and we could have code enforcement go out, and they would address the issue with the local owners.
And the challenge I would assume with this property is it
It's whose
appears
car
that
is it?
there's a lot of different automobile dealerships in there, so we don't really know which applicant it is that's doing this.
Correct, and we have actually had Christine over here for a couple days. They were parking some cars in the access point onto Riverside, so she's aware of the issue of them parking cars in places they shouldn't. I can also let her know that there's some issues on Cherry Street as well.
For the property proper, do we have any sense of the number of spaces that are designated for each of the individual units, and if they're being used appropriately?
So that's this specific applicant was designated, I believe, 5 spots, from what he had told me. How I'm doing the calculation for the parking for the next 2 units is I've been taking it by the building and how many parking is outside that building. So, for instance, this building that is that southwest or southeast building, there's 16 spots with I believe 8,000 square feet, which comes out to be about 15 spots needed. So they have about 1 extra, but that's how I'm calculating parking at this point.
Would we have the ability to add a condition stating that the gate access between this development and Cherry Street is eliminated?
That might be a question for Jared and, yeah, probably
Okay.
Jared.
Please.
That one I'm not sure of.
Let me try to address that. If you do, the short answer is yes. You need to, as a commission, feel like you're tying that extra condition to mitigating an impact of this specific conditional use permit. So if the feeling is not that his business is creating the problem, then it's probably inappropriate, although you are able to do it. I don't know that it's advisable to condition it removing the gate. We can probably tackle the problem without too much ado with code enforcement. Cars that are wrecked and inoperable cannot be parked on the street. Their street parking is legal for lots of cars if they're moving every so often, every 72 hours or what have you. But if they're inoperable and out there and causing a real traffic issue, as the gentleman suggested, then we have ways to deal with that. Removal of the gate could be conditioned, but we need to tie that to saying we're mitigating an impact of this business by doing it. And if that impact is, we feel like those are cars that he's repairing, and sales is going to take up other space that he would otherwise put those cars in, we need to articulate that. It's taking up space with sales of vehicles. Those cars that are being repaired are then going to have to be out on the street. That gate facilitates parking them on Cherry Street, so remove the gate, then we remove the problem. No one's going to come all the way back around without the gate.
Right.
But can you expand on that discussion? Because honestly, there's no way to pin down one business in this
No,
complex. And
that's
if-
why you eliminate the gate.
Well, if we say there's 5 auto businesses and it's obviously impacting the street traffic, then we can just say in general and not blame it on one individual.
That's true, and most of the businesses in here are auto-oriented businesses, so it would be an effective way to say that.
Well, and
let's
we
eliminate that
use conditions to affect property owners with landscaping
Yes.
and other things to hold the property owner accountable to our standards. So making a condition that's holding the property in general
Yeah.
to these standards. I don't.
That makes sense.
So
I don't
And
feel-
Jared, as part of that, I mean, these pictures that the gentleman brought, is the park strip here where the fence is that subject to the landscape ordinances?
It's park strip, so all it
Okay.
has to be is maintained, so the weeds
So-
are actually cut right now, and
Okay.
it's not landscaping it's not frontage landscaping.
Right, right.
It's park strip, so it's actually city right-of-way that they're required to keep the weeds down.
Right. Okay.
Can you speak to the fence a little bit more? Is it the fence in general? Is it a requirement? Why is it there? What is it?
It's not required, no. The fence in general is not required.
So
They
the
have it
gate-
there for security, probably.
So a gate or not a gate isn't.
Okay, so the fence wasn't originally required
I don't know that.
to restrict access onto Cherry Street back when, we don't know that?
I don't know the answer to that question.
But the current standards, you wouldn't have enforced that if this was a net new property.
No, if it was a new property, we wouldn't require them to have a fence necessarily.
So in theory, the fence isn't required, so we can't require a gate or no gate. It's not.
Or you can make that a condition of, I think if you I'm not uncomfortable with it if you articulate that it's to keep that problem from happening. It just needs to be clear that that's the reason.
Is there an actual access to the
There's
street?
not. There's just the gate and the fence. There's no curb cut. There's
So
no.
that would be the real question is, has there been breach that there really isn't an access to that property from Cherry Street, being there is no curb cut?
There's just yeah, there's not a vehicle
Pedestrian
access
gate.
anyway.
Yeah.
There's no vehicle access. But again, I have to be clear about this so you know what you're doing when you go forward. If they came to us in 2 weeks and said, we'd like to modify our site plan and have an access out to Cherry Street, I have no reason to tell them no. That's a reasonable thing. They have frontage on Cherry Street.
Or even the owner could take down the whole fence. It would have to come to you with request at
If it
all.
was required in a site plan approval, then he wouldn't, but I don't know that that's the case. I don't have enough information to tell you that that would be the case.
But then the only enforcement of parking on Cherry Street is the same enforcement of
As
reporting
anywhere.
it.
Yeah.
As
And
anywhere
we will
else,
definitely,
which is-
regardless of what
Right.
you do with a
The
new condition or
fence.
no new condition,
Right.
we will take that as a directive, and like Zach mentioned, we've already started to do that with Christina right now. She's dealing with those cars over there right now. And we don't allow inoperable vehicles to be parked on the street.
I mean,
What
we
about
could-
storage of vehicles
And you're-
obviously they're using it as storage, they're in multiple
That's-
states of disrepair.
The only thing that should be parked on the street would be people, customers or people like that should be on the street. That's acceptable anywhere, but storing them
Employees?
there is not appropriate for the
Okay.
business. So a condition of approval could be no storage of vehicles on the street. All storage of vehicles waiting to be
Right.
repaired for sale has to happen on site. That's a good condition.
Right,
Jerry-
but it may not even be this applicant. I mean, I think
Right.
you look at the cars in the proximate business, and it seems that there's the cars on the street that happen to be the same brand as the sign on the business.
Yeah.
You know, they could probably call 262-6423 and say, you know, maybe you should move these cars, Mr. Sob Seller. So that's the hard part about that, Jared, is that we could even put a condition that says you can't park things on the street. But that only applies to this one applicant.
Well, and it's the same enforcement.
And it's the same
if it's
enforcement as
reported.
anything else, which
Right.
is you report and someone will come over and watch it for a couple days and that's it. So it's,
That's,
Well, and well, like you said, guests or customers are allowed legally to park on the side street. Are employees allowed to park there? Because they,
or me eating my lunch from Burger King. I mean, it's a public street. People can park on it. I recognize it's creating a problem. I'm not downplaying that. It's creating an issue. But it is a street and it's legal to park on the street unless we red curb that area, which is possible too. But I don't see a reason for that. I see some cars. I understand it's a nuisance and creating a visual effect, but I think we could police that. My opinion is we can effectively police that by making it difficult when they do park them there inappropriately, and then it remains legal when it is appropriate.
Has the department added any enforcement staff?
I would love to tell you we have. We have no.
Okay. I will spare you my diatribe about our enforcement efforts ever since I've been on this commission, and I will also say that I am planning on proposing an additional condition to this application.
Okay, I've got one more little thing here. On condition number 4, where it says that no for sale vehicles stored in the parking area or on the public right-of-way, I'm wondering if we need to clarify that terminology for the no for sale vehicles, since there's a picture here of one in disrepair that could technically be termed as a vehicle that's under repair and not really for sale right now. Do we need to fine-tune that language?
If his conditional use permit is for sales, his use as a repair shop
Is
is
a
a
permitted use.
and
Okay,
it's
so
not-
he's just sales only.
Well,
he's
he's
repair and
currently repairing and he's applying for a sale.
Sales also.
Okay, so maybe we do
But
need to
it-
fine-tune that verbiage.
We
a
don't know
little.
if it's this applicant
Yeah.
that's
I would assume it's
breaking
not,
the,
honestly.
Yeah, it's
It's-
all of the other people. We don't have a way to hold the
Right.
owner of the property
And I understand that.
responsible for.
Jared, are there ways when we can, sit down with the owner and with the code enforcement and you and have it over your Burger King lunch
Yeah,
and say, look, your property's kind of a nuisance in some of these things. You need to do a better job controlling because, I agree with what Maren said. And Phil, we don't have enough enforcement to go and watch all these cars. It's impossible to see that these cars in here are related to this applicant.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's very little mitigating conditions we could put in for this applicant that would prevent what we're seeing here in these pictures.
and we
Or
can
that he's
certainly-
even the one that's
Exactly.
breaking the.
Right.
We don't know. I
Yeah.
don't have any doubt. It seems clear that the gate is there for that purpose.
Sure.
And so I don't have any doubt about what the gentleman
Yeah.
said.
I
just-
believe it.
Like you said, we can't really necessarily tie it to this gentleman's business, but
Right.
the
Right.
condition could help.
And
A condition could help. I don't think that changing the verbiage in the conditions that already exist is
Yeah.
really necessary if the impetus is to go forward with some new condition that would be removal of the gate or.
But by removal of gate, I can just take down the fence.
Yeah.
I've removed the gate.
right,
I just feel like it.
I don't know that would, and you can't necessarily preclude that, but I don't think that that's likely. The gate looks like, not the gate, sorry.
Fence.
The
The
fence
fence.
to me looks like security.
for the cars.
And the businesses and the landowner have the ability to protect their business.
Investment.
So that's what my concern is like if we're saying you have to take the fence down, now all of a sudden they're like, well, I can put these cars in my property, and I want them protected. So I feel like we're kind of between a rock and a hard place, and the only thing we can really do is have a good heart to heart with the business owner and say, and a consistent and say, look, we understand you want to do your business, but try to take pride. You know, this affects our city. This affects people beyond you, and we don't want to be known as the junkyard of city car dealers. So,
Sure. And we can definitely have a meeting like that. I've had a couple of those.
So I agree with what's been said. I'm a little bit nervous about us adding a condition. I mean, I understand why, and I support the reasons why, but I don't know if technically it would help, and if we can.
I mean, Phil said and I'd like to hear what condition he wants to put in potentially, but did we close the public comment?
We have not.
Okay.
Well, no, that's not true. We did. We brought it back
Okay.
up here for
So,
discussion.
I mean, I'd be curious to see what condition. I mean, Phil has been on the commission for, 6 years and usually has very good recommendations. So I'd like to hear Phil's comments on what he would recommend.
Well, I would propose to eliminate the access at the east border of the property that allows access to Cherry Street.
Pedestrian access.
Access,
Access.
just plain old access.
Sure.
There is no curb cut there. There's, I don't think it's appropriate to have access into that other development there that impacts them. When we are placing restrictions on each of these businesses, like tonight, that everything be conducted inside their building.
And they should
Yet
be
we
part-
are also allowing all of this bleed over into another development.
Sure.
That, to me, is contradictory and not fair.
And the employees, if they are parking legally, and it's just employees, we're requiring appropriate parking within each
Sure.
building, so it shouldn't be an issue.
I guess, an employee could still park there and walk all the way around the block. It's going to take him a while. He better be there early for work. But
Based on
yeah.
numbers of employees, we've based our parking calculations and the things we're suggesting on numbers of employees. So ostensibly, the employees should be able to park at the business.
Right.
So it shouldn't be a problem for them not to have a gate. That's true.
Right.
It's good to know. Thank you.
Does that help?
I think it does, yeah.
Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Well, I mean, the only thing I would say is we don't want to downplay Mr. Brimhall's concerns with this, and I think that we had more conversation with this topic than I think we probably intended to have. I'm glad you brought your concern forward, and I would encourage you to get a hold of code enforcement anytime you see this consistently happening, because you do have, you want your business to look nice. You want the businesses around you to look nice, and I think that I'm glad you came forward and brought this up, and I do encourage you to use that code enforcement number and use it over and over and over again until you get the results you deserve.
And I do think it's important to point out, I want to be very specific that this is not a reflection on your business
Correct.
whatsoever.
Correct.
Absolutely not. I have no reason to believe that you are the party responsible for any of this, and this is just a vehicle for us to ensure that the overall property is operating as we believe it should. And as was stated earlier, we do this through landscape ordinances. Many times when a new tenant comes in and the landscaping is substandard, the entire property has to be upgraded with landscaping. That's the way I'm viewing this. This is a chance to upgrade the entire property and make sure that it's behaving in the way that we would like it to in our city. So, it is absolutely no reflection on you or your business, sir.
Mr. Chairman, a question for Jared. Is there ways to know if at some point that fence was required as part of an existing building or business in there, that we did require it, or if it was just simply someone decided to put it up to protect their business?
It's doubtful.
Okay.
For us to know that categorically, anyway. We can check files, but just looking at the age of the buildings, I don't think I'm going to find any.
It might be something that was put up 15 tenants ago,
And fences don't require permits, so it may not have been part of an original plan that was required, and they decided they needed it. We're not going to have records showing me that.
Okay.
Probably.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because I'm comfortable with Phil putting in that, because I agree that it's more of a chance to send a message to the owner rather than the individual applicant, and I'm fully supportive of that message, because it is one that we want across the city. I think as we were talking about in the pre-meeting, we're getting a little bit tired of a lot of the developments that are a little dilapidated, and that there's not, it's more about just renting them and getting the buck rather than actually taking pride in the development. And so I agree with Phil that it's a good message to send.
Okay.
So,
Before Mr. Markham makes his suggestion on the condition, by saying access, are you intending to, I mean, would that prevent future curb cuts?
Well, at this point, I'm saying yes, prevents
And-
access.
and-
Now, if they went through proper steps, I mean, that doesn't deal with us directly. They don't come back to us to get permission to do it.
No,
But
Correct.
If they took the time to make an application, it wouldn't preclude
Right.
them making a formal change in the future, but that gives us, when they do that, we have an opportunity to review the effects of that.
Right.
And maybe red curbs are appropriate at that point, or who knows what. But yeah,
Right.
that's not,
So-
I'm not uncomfortable with the idea of a condition the way.
And
you
you'll
put it.
see that on any future applications to come through.
Curb cut is a permitted thing.
Yeah.
Right, the engineer has
Yeah.
to deal with
We would have to, curb cuts have their own sets of permits, and a change to a site plan like that would require us to review the site plan formally with the group. So we would do that.
Okay.
Well, then I'll entertain either more conversation or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow an auto sales business at the property addressed 4651 South, 500 West, Unit Number 10, subject to conditions 1 through 8 as listed in the application, with the addition of condition number 9 that states the elimination of the access at the east border of the property that allows access to Cherry Street.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Markham to approve a conditional use permit to allow auto sales business at the property address 4651 South, 500 West, Unit Number 10, subject to conditions 1 through 8, with condition 9 read into the record as eliminate the access at the east border of the property that allows access to Cherry Street. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second by Mr. Hacker. Call for a vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yep. Yes. Motion carries. Good luck with your business. Sorry to give you the extra conversation.
Thank you.
Item number 7 this evening is Enlo seeking a conditional use for an accessory dwelling unit at the property address 266 West Noah Circle. Is that applicant here this evening? We'll have you up in just a moment. Mr. Smallwood.
Great. So this is an application for an ADU, like the chair had stated. This property is, the main dwelling is 3,800 square feet with a proposed ADU of 785 square feet, which comes out to about 20%, which is less than the 40% allowed in the zone, or in the accessory dwelling unit development standards. So this property is a little weird. To avoid any to avoid double access on either side, which Murray City does not allow. The property was pushed back to almost like a flag lot, but not quite. So there are access easements along 264 and 268 Noah Circle to access the front of the property. But the actual frontage of the property is on Rainy Lane, which is to the north there, that little circle there. This is in the R18 zone, which allows ADUs. This is the proposed site plan here. You can see, it doesn't work. Get it. And so this is the proposed floor plan. To your far left would access the garage, and then you have their mud room that is kind of a shared space with shared washing facilities for clothes. And then you'd have access to the ADU from the side of the property and from that mud room as well. Here are a few pictures. Like I said, they have a really long driveway, so they have the parking available for the 2 additional off-street parking spaces that are required. And it would be built, so the access to the ADU would be at that bottom picture on the right-hand side. And so we are recommending approval of this, subject to the 8 conditions. Any questions for staff?
Questions for staff? Okay, thank you. If we could have the applicant come up and just have you state your name and address for the record, please.
Corey Enlow, owner of the property at 266 West Noah Circle.
All right, have you had an opportunity to review the 8 conditions.
I have.
You'll be able to comply with those 8
Yes.
conditions. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to the presentation?
No, thank you for your time.
Okay. Before you sit down, any questions for the applicant? Nope. Okay, now you can sit down. Okay. We will open this up for public comment if there's anyone that would like to speak to this issue. Good evening. Remember to state your name and address, please.
My name is my name is Mark Burton, and my address is 6195 Rainy Lane. I have no opposition to the proposed additional dwelling unit. My house is directly impacted on the cul-de-sac at Rainy Lane, and that cul-de-sac is very, very small. It's 60 feet on diameter. Most of the time, excuse me, dealing with a cold. Most of the time, I've never put the gate on my driveway because cars have to pull into my driveway to get back out. In the fire code, the normal cul-de-sac diameter is 96 feet. So I would just like to ask consideration from the applicant not to use the Rainy Lane cul-de-sac for staging or employee parking or anything else in that nature. Thank you.
Okay. Saw someone else? Come on up. Hello.
Hello. Thomas Olson, 6163 Rainy Lane. I live just a few doors down, and that cul-de-sac, the new Fords, they have a terrible turn radius. You can barely get the Ford through that circle itself. But I don't have a Ford, I have a Tacoma, but with the trailer on, it's still difficult enough getting a trailer through. It's just same concern of trying to keep that circle clear and make sure there's no parking there, just to keep it accessible.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back up here. I mean, I will just say that I think it's reasonable to impose a construction condition to keep the contractors off of Rainy Lane. There's plenty of parking on Noah. Is it Noah?
Noah Circle.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and also the drive is big enough that I think you could park multiple construction vehicles if you needed them. But I think that seems really reasonable.
Seems reasonable. So, I mean, Jared, is that a condition that we can?
You can impose that condition, or we can take it as a directive for they're going to need a building permit for this. Or that. If you want to add a condition that may not use Rainy Lane or avoid using Rainy Lane for that purpose, we can do that.
We've done that in the past.
Yeah, we have. And then it usually requires a big sign that goes up that says no construction access. So,
the target.
and then it becomes a target, and then it's no target shooting on the construction signs that say not. But okay.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I've already pontificated enough.
I concur.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit to allow the accessory dwelling unit at the property address 266 West Noah Circle, subject to the 8 conditions in the report, with the addition of a condition stating no construction access on Rainy Circle.
All right, I have a motion by Mrs. Patterson to approve a conditional use permit to allow an accessory dwelling unit at the property addressed 266 West Noah Circle.
Mr. Chairman, we have
A point of order. Do we need to ask if he can, if he's okay with his conditions and can apply? Can meet the condition?
I mean, it's.
Sure. Do you feel like you'd be able to comply with that condition? Yeah, sure.
I just want to question access versus staging. Because we'll have to do some digging for foundation work back there, and you won't be able to get a large piece of equipment through Noah Circle. You'll have to come access through Rainy Lane, but they won't we don't have to stage there. Like, I completely
Yeah.
respect their concern, and I validate that. And we would come through Rainy Lane to get there, but they would stage any vehicles. We're happy to mandate that they stage any vehicles either in our front area, or they could even park in we actually have some back space of the yard that could be parked on.
I think that's more than reasonable.
Yeah.
I think that's
All right. I just wanna make
Especially
sure
since,
it's
especially since
staging versus access
it's going to be in the middle
different.
of business hours usually, for when they have to come in
Access.
and do
Yep.
like concrete pour and stuff. That
Correct.
just
Yeah,
totally
staging
makes
versus
it.
access.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
the verbiage. So, okay, thank you.
So just substitute staging for access.
Access.
Okay, and I'm going to try to remember what it was now, but that's all right. Okay, so I have a motion by Mrs. Patterson to approve a conditional use permit to allow accessory dwelling unit at the property address 266 West Noah Circle, subject to conditions 1 through 8, with condition number 9 stating, help me,
With no staging.
no
on
staging
Rainy
on
Circle.
Rainy Circle.
No construction,
Staging.
equipment, staging,
Construction, equipment,
construction.
staging.
Well, no.
Correct, Mrs. Patterson?
Great.
Okay,
Necessarily equipment, though, the trucks and cars, so no staging of equipment.
call for a
No
second.
construction. I'll second.
Okay, I have a second by Mr. Woodbury. Call for a vote, please.
Construction or ancillary.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Yep.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. McCaven?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes, motion carries. Good luck. Item number 8 this evening is Rail Shed seeking a conditional use for a building contractor business at the property address 4141 South, 500 West, unit number 6. Is that applicant here this evening? Okay, we'll have you up in just a moment. Mr. Smallwood.
Great. So this property is located on right off of 500 West. It's just north of Garco, in the MG zone, and contractors are a conditional use here. They're proposing to go into Unit 6, which on your screen is that far right-hand side, highlighted in green. One of the awkward elements of this property is that most of these units do not have restrooms attached to them. They are separated. So I highlighted in red where the public access to restrooms are. So that was a contingent in building. The building official was worried about that at first, but it has been addressed, and that's okay. It's just pretty much an enlarged storage area. It's kind of a warehouse area. There's no office space, nothing like that. There's an overhead door with 2 parking spaces. We feel that is sufficient. There are a couple pictures here for you. The bottom left-hand corner is where the restrooms are, if you were really interested. And then here, just for visual sake, you can see in the far right-hand red square is where his unit is, and then the closer red square is where the restrooms are. Just make sure that you see there's not a lot of distance there between them.
Less than 300 feet.
Yes.
Okay.
So we are recommending approval subject to 4 conditions. Any questions for staff?
Questions first.
I just find it really odd that when this was built, and it's a relatively new building, it is not, old stock, that this type of restroom situation was allowed. I know it has no bearing on
Right.
on this particular application, but I can't imagine that going through.
Yeah, it was odd for me to see it too. I had no idea that was a thing. So
Sure.
It's a thing.
yeah, I guess it's a thing.
And the building official that requires you to be within 300 feet didn't require you to have restrooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else for me, guys?
There's really nothing else to say about that.
Thanks.
I mean, we all feel the same way.
We could have the applicant come up.
Go on a diatribe about restrooms.
Good evening.
Hello. So I'm Tristan Hugh. I'm co-owner. My husband's actually the contractor. We currently.
Can you tell us an address?
Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Where are we? So it's 4141 South, 5th West.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm nervous. Sorry.
No, don't be.
Don't be nervous. So right now we're pretty much just using it for storage. We currently do have a business license. Everything we do is actually on site of the customers right now. So he's pretty much putting his trucks and trailers and tools and stuff like that. He just recently got his contracting license. a couple months ago, so just trying to get out there.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review the 4 conditions?
Yes.
And you'll be able to comply with those 4
Yes.
conditions. I did have one question on painting. I know you suggested that you'd be maybe manufacturing some doors with inside the facility. Do you plan on a spray booth or anything like that?
Definitely not. It's too much work.
Okay. Any additional questions? All right, thank you. We will open this up for public comment if anyone would like to speak to this issue. And seeing none, we will close the public comment and bring it back up here for discussion or motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit to allow building contractor business at the property address 4141 South, 500 West, unit number 6, pending the following conditions 1 through 4.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Hacker to approve a conditional use permit to allow a building contractor business at the property address 4141 South, 500 West, unit number 6, subject to conditions 1 through 4. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mrs. Wilson. Call for vote.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Mulcahy?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yep.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yep.
Mr. May?
Yes, motion carry, motion carries. I was surprised myself. Good luck with your.
Without any additional.
Right. Good luck with your business. This evening, items number 9 and 10 are going to be heard as a single presentation. And items number 9 and 10 are Utah Education Association et al. Seeking a general plan amendment and a amendment to the future zoning map from RM10 to general zoning at the property address 875 Pontiac and 852, 864, 872, 874, and 878 East Arrowhead Lane.
So you'll notice it's not 6102 South Clear Street, as it says on your screen. Sorry about that, but the addresses are as you just said. So we did miss an address that we didn't realize. I apologize. So as you mentioned, these are the properties that we're talking about. There are some condominiums within the one office building. There are 2 office buildings, 2 parcels that those are located on that you just read the addresses to, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Between Arrowhead Lane and Pontiac Drive and just west of 900 East. These properties are people generally know them as the EMI and UEA office buildings. EMI recently moved to a new office building on Vine Street, Commerce Drive, as you know, and some space has opened up for them. They're looking at different remodeling projects and things like that, and in doing that, realize that they are zoned inappropriately for the use that they are. The zoning on this property is actually RM10, which is a multifamily apartment zone, 7 to 10 units to the acre. That kind of thing. It's been that way for a long time. I put some history in your reports, but basically in 1964 these buildings were constructed. At the time, we had a zone called R12. We no longer have that zone. It wasn't around for very long. Soon after the R12 zone was put in place, and these buildings were built under that zone, it was a multifamily zone, just like RM10 is. However, it allowed professional office buildings. These buildings were constructed under that zone. They didn't need any special approvals dispensation because it was allowable under that zone. Then the zone was removed, and they replaced the zone with the closest thing to R12 that seemed at the time, and everywhere they removed R12, they replaced it with RM10, including here where there were no apartments, but there were office buildings. We did have several calls after the notices went out. Folks in the area were confused because they didn't realize that that was actually zoned for apartments and not office buildings, and were concerned that we were rezoning it for apartments to tear the office buildings down and build apartments. In fact, the opposite is what's being requested. They would like their zoning to match their use. So as you can see, the general office across the street, it works for me, Zach. I don't know why that doesn't work for you. Probably a vampire, just for the record.
Millennials.
But it is RM10 zoning. There's general offices around the, think architecture offices are just here off to the side. A little wider view of the zoning. You can see that RM10. There's some other areas of RM10. There are some condominiums, et cetera. 3 Fountains is in this area, et cetera. But there's also a lot of general office zoning as well. And what they've requested is to change their future land use map designation, which is currently medium density residential. They want to change that designation to office, so that would support the zone change request that they've also made to change from RM10 to general office. Again, I want to stress that the purpose of their zone change request is not to remove the office buildings, but rather to be able to update them, remodel them when they need to, and keep using them as they have. They want to remain tenants and in their, well, tenants. They want to remain owners and tenants in their own office building and be able to make upgrades when they need it. This is the future land use map. Just for the record, again, this land use designation was based on the algorithm that saw it as zoning and existing structures and just applied that same designation, medium density residential. We probably should have applied this office designation. The office designation allows general office zoning, but not professional office zoning. And just so you're aware, the professional office zone has more allowances for height and intensity. It's more of our downtown office zone. The general office zone is our suburban office zone with limits on height. You have to be, it's a 35-foot height limit. You get a little bit taller as you get another foot or two. It's every, I think it's a foot of height for every 4 feet from residential zoning that you are, in addition to that 35 feet after the first 100 feet that you're away. So there are some limitations on height. The buffer requirements are greater in that zone. So there's we feel confident as staff that applying this office zone, this general office zone, will let them stay kind of the way they are. They might be able to improve the building, they might be able to remodel and expand a bit, but it won't become the kind of office complex that would be a nuisance in the area. Just to show you what we're talking about, these are some pictures that we took up at the site. West side of the second building. It's got a basement and 2 stories above. This is the west parking lot. A lot of trees you can see over here. These trees are actually down in kind of a lower area too. These are really tall. This is a good example. You know, when we say that trees will do more for your buffering than that 8-foot wall will, this is what we're talking about. It takes time, but when that landscaping is full and mature, it creates a much better buffer than anything else, really. Other than that, the buildings are located in the center of the property as we look for with general office zoning, and they're ringed by their parking, so you have some distance to the residential. It's nice and quiet. Actually looks a lot like a school in the area, and we feel like it's a good fit. We'd like to support them in continuing to use that office building and being able to finance redevelopment or remodeling and that kind of thing without trouble. So we'd like their zoning to match. So we are supporting both requests. First to amend the zone, or sorry, first to amend the general plan future land use map from medium density residential to office, and then based on that support the zoning map from RM10 to general office. Any questions for staff at this point?
Questions for staff?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So Jared, years back, the city adopted a residential neighborhood business zone.
Right.
So is there any good reason to while we are changing this, instead of changing it to general office, to change it to a neighborhood residential?
Yeah, I think for one, because in this particular area, the prevailing pattern of the office zoning and designations that are in the area are actually office as opposed to neighborhood business or residential business, which is what we need to support the R&B zone. The second part of it is just that these properties are considerably deeper than most of our R&B properties along 9th East. This is over 6.5 acres. And the other parts of the R&B zoning designation have to do with the scale of buildings and the massing of buildings. And even though we might make the general use conforming by rezoning it to R&B, all of the aspects of the buildings are out of whack with that. They don't have pitched roofs, they don't have that kind of thing. So they'd still be non-conforming to that zone, so it makes more sense to us as staff to just go with the general office zoning.
Okay.
It does contain a lot of buffering requirements, the same way that R&B does, but it doesn't have the same sort of architectural controls for trying to make the buildings look more residential in character. That would be a little bit of an inhibitor for.
Jared, can you talk about how if a change to GO is approved, it really does not allow a change in the height of the EMI building.
I haven't.
And 35 feet, how that compares to a typical residential house.
So the residential zoning, for example, to the immediate west here, R18 zoning, the height requirement in that zone, or the height allowance in that zone, is 35 feet as well. So you're not going to see, even if, and I haven't analyzed it to be perfectly honest, I haven't analyzed the heights or what would be allowed based on the distance of these buildings from that zoning line, but eyeballing it, not a lot more than's already there if there were any more allowance because of that requirement. So if there were additional heights allowed in parts where it's already lower, you're still not going to see the kinds of heights. It's difficult in GO zoning, especially when it's in the middle of a neighborhood like this, to get over 40, 42 feet. It just doesn't get higher than that generally.
And then any future tenants are going to be regulated, number of employees and so forth are regulated by the available parking around the building and
Correct. We
that
would-
also,
in any,
right?
In any redevelopment, any remodel, tenant improvements, we analyze the parking.
Okay, and
We don't see
I'm asking these questions just to provide some reassurance to the neighbors that are here that we're not looking to add a massive downtown-style office complex in this area. We want to just keep it as it is, as an asset, and make it a little bit better, possibly.
Correct.
Thank you.
It's really not a really nice area. This seems to be a good fit for. We'd like it to continue to be that way. Correct.
To piggyback that thought, what are the setbacks on Geo?
Geozone setbacks. I don't have them.
I'm
off the top
sorry,
of my
put
head.
you on the
I
spot.
want to say the front setbacks 20 feet requirements, and rear setbacks are the same. Generally speaking, because of parking in the general office zone, you see a greater setback than that.
Just the same as Chairman Markman was doing. If this were to be demolished and something else would be built, it'd be something very similar.
Right, and I think to clarify, just in today's kind of development climate, if they wanted to tear these buildings down and rebuild them, they would not be asking for a zone change, because that value square foot per square foot has a lot more value as a multifamily
As residential.
zone. Right now, I mean, that changes. 30 years ago, that wasn't the case, but right now, you can't have more valuably zoned land than straight multifamily residential. It's going for prices that are unbelievable. So 20, so Zach's confirming that my memory's not that bad, 20. The area is a really nice, it is really a nice area. We want to see this kind of office. This is the kind of office structure we'd like to see when we do the general office zone. And I think that's based, I think you'd see very minor changes if they remodel or change things, and they'd probably be.
And then if they do decide to tear down and rebuild, that'll be another public process as well.
Yeah, general office actually require, any new buildings in the general office zone require planning commission approval.
Oh, that's a good point.
They're all conditional uses, any new building at all. So.
Okay, so they're not going to be able to sneak in overnight and put up a
No.
20-story building
That's
without the neighbors knowing and being able to voice their concerns.
Even if we're all
Even
on
if the
vacation.
neighbors knew, they can't get a 20-story building in.
Yeah.
But
no.
as it is right now, we're looking at 35 feet, which is the same height as residential.
It's the same height as residential zoning, and they might be able, given distances from residential zoning, they might be able to have portions that are a little taller than that, but nothing shocking at all, no.
So this
We're
is
not looking at 5'6".
basically a zoning cleanup to just get it properly
is.
zoned for what's existing on the land.
Yeah, to make remodeling easier for them where possible without having to go through extra processes, getting expansions of non-conforming approvals from the hearing officer, et cetera. And we feel like it's a good move for the city because we don't actually feel like the area is a good area for a lot more multifamily. So this gets us the general office zone. We feel like the office is a good fit. This is a way of, I have no way to say that, making more permanent the current situation. Even if it allows some changes to the buildings themselves a little bit, it's still a more permanent land use situation.
And I do think it's important to note that it is in harmony with the future land use map that the city has, so it does dovetail. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll have a representative of the applicant come up, please. Hi.
Hi, Phil.
Hi,
I'm Brenda Pett, and I'm with the Utah Education Association. And I want to just be clear, if there's residents that are here, can I just give you a little bit of
Oh,
background?
please do, please
since
do.
we're so
Yeah.
early. So, our building is aging. It's 60 years old, and we have significant problems with our roof and with structure. And when we first started looking at what our options could be, and it was about the time that EMI was selling their building, they proposed that we purchase their building. And at the time, it was just too much for us. It's just too big. We can't afford it. Our dues are driven from salaries of teachers, and we don't have that big of a surplus. And so we have to make do with what we have. And so we started, some work with Naylor Wentworth and Lund to kind of look at what some of our options could be. And, at the time we thought, maybe just make some improvements, replace the roof. And it came to our attention that in order for us to make those improvements, the building is so old and so much of our mechanical and heating and cooling and electrical is tied up into that roof that it would be so significant for us to do all that it would benefit us more to look at just doing a remodel or even possibly maybe even, a newer structure an add-on or something, And so while we don't have any of that planned right now, we took the proposal to our members and to our board of directors, and we said our option is to move. We can leave Murray. We can try and find something else. And it was a general consensus of our members and our board that they identify this location with UEA. It's UEA. If you talk to people, you say, "Oh, we're down the street from UEA," and they really, really like the location. They love the neighborhood. I think the neighborhood probably appreciates we don't get a lot of traffic and a lot of riffraff there. And we take good care of the property. It looks nice, and it's our intent to do the same with whatever we decide moving forward. It's going to be very similar to what we're in right now. We're just trying to take the first steps to be responsible and get the zoning changed, and then we look at what our options are money-wise. But whatever we do, it will have the same sort of feel. We're not going big office complex sort of thing. We want that homey school type of feeling. So,
Any questions for the applicant? No. I can't believe we made you do this on UEA weekend.
Oh, well, we don't get UEA weekend. We're working. I actually came from work.
Well, obviously, we don't get UEA weekend either. So.
Any questions? Okay, go ahead.
No, I get UEA weekend.
Oh, you get UEA weekend. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So we will open this up for public comment. So anyone would like to speak to this, this is time. Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. Bring it back up here. Point of order, I don't need two separate public comments, or...
Because we handled it as one public
Okay.
hearing. So.
Okay.
So is it one motion also?
No, it's two motions.
Two motions.
Okay, so any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the general plan future land use map designation of the properties located at 875 East Pontiac Drive and 852, 864, 872, 874, and 878 East Arrowhead Lane from medium-density residential to office.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Markham to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the general plan, future land use map designation of the properties located at 875 East Pontiac Drive and 852, 864, 872, 874, and 878 East Arrowhead Lane from medium-density residential to office. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Mr. Woodbury. Call for a vote.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yep.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Nay?
Yes, that motion carries. Next, do we have a motion for the...
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
That we forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the properties located at 875 East Pontiac Drive and 852, 864, 872, 874, and 878 East Arrowhead Lane from RM10 multifamily residential to GO general office.
I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendments to the zoning map designation of the properties located at 875 East Pontiac Drive and 852, 864, 872, 874, and 878 East Arrowhead Lane from RM10 residential multifamily to GO general office. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Markham. Call for a vote, please.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yep.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Mr. Nay?
Yes, motion carries. Good luck with your future endeavors. That's it for the formal agenda. Do we have anything that staff would like to add?
Just a couple of quick things. We have coming up next Thursday night, here in this chamber, an open house, a workshop, open house presentation of a draft plan for the small area plan for the Murray Central Station. We have a couple of flyers. Travis has been, or Commissioner Nay, Chairman Nay, has been kind enough to help us out trying to get some notices in the elevators at the IMC building. We actually, the EMI building is down on Vine Street and Commerce Drive now, as you're aware, and we sent an email over to Mike Greenhall that was our contact person there. He kindly emailed that to all the EMI employees. That I see a lot of them every day walking down Vine Street to their office. There was some enthusiastic participation from them today, talking about this plan. So we're doing a bunch of other work with that as well, trying to get the word out. Zach and I are going to spend some time at the station handing out cute little postcards we printed up today. Based
Maybe
on
put up an A-frame.
You know, I was going to put up an A-frame sign in front of your house, but
It's fine.
I'm going to hold off on that.
No one cares about the central station at my.
As long as it's got a sticker on it, that's
Yeah.
okay.
The sticker. We are trying to get people to care about the Murray Central Station area. If you want to look at the, we've got a card. We could give you all a card if you like. You can go to
Already got one.
the website for it. Great, thank you. So go take a minute if you get a chance and go to that web address at the bottom to LDI's website and look at what they're proposing. Some of the things we've got going on. It's kind of fun stuff. It's going to wind up being a plan that is a very high level sort of document. You're not going to see design guidelines in it or a form-based code coming out of it, but there is a lot of work done to kind of tell us what would be possible and what would just not be possible in the station area itself, and what kinds of businesses we can try to bring into the area, that kind of thing. So a lot of fun stuff there. If you have people that you think might be interested, let them know, and just appreciate you knowing about it. If you'd
Jared,
like to come, please feel free to come.
Tell us how big the station area plan project site is.
It is bigger than a half-a-mile radius around the station. It is a big area.
Wow.
Mostly
Part of that-
toxic.
Mostly toxic, and that's the reason that it's so big. The core of that area, has to remain capped. We had been hopeful that we might be able to put, we want to put offices and apartments and things right there by the station so that you minimize traffic in and out of the station. People are on foot as much as possible and that kind of thing. That's the whole point of the way we're trying to do density in the city and in the valley. We're not going to be able to do that directly at this particular station, which is a real tragedy, but the contaminations are just too great, and that was kind of the main thing that came out of this study, actually, was that it would be an insurmountable challenge to change those things. So
It's
what
so
can we-
contaminated. We'll have a cancer hospital there instead.
No food, no
No,
residents.
no, it's not that we can't do any. We could do offices, and we will propose some of that in a station redesign. The other challenge is that the IMC building, the Intermountain Healthcare, does not have any plans to give up any of that parking lot that they have, that giant parking lot. They're going to have a difficult time digging further into that because of the contaminants, and so a lot of that's going to remain the same. But we can do at the station site itself, and UTA is interested in, not tomorrow or the next year or whatever, but in sometime in the future, redesigning that station, redeveloping that station, and that's what you're going to see in some of those documents. And like I say, it's not like we're not going to wind up adopting something that says thou shalt build this plan, but it's something that we'll have in hand when UTA decides to redevelop and maybe bring in an office building. We'll have some principles and things to lean on and guide that new development. It also talks about trying to make Vine Street more a focus of the station as opposed to the way it's currently oriented, and we feel like that's a good idea. Vine Street's changing a lot. I have a before and after picture that the guys took. There's a Google Photos picture that hasn't been updated from when there was nothing there, and if you go out there today, it looks a lot different just right there at Vine and Commerce. A lot more walkable, a lot more friendly that way, and it just makes sense to have the station kind of relate more to Vine Street. So we're pushing that kind of thing. But anyway, so I've talked about it enough. Sorry. That's if you want to look at that stuff, we'd be happy to guide you to it. Or if you ever want to talk about it just in general, call me.
Jared, will internet auto sales be prohibited in this zone?
Definitely. This is mixed use zoning. So yeah,
Okay.
anything to do with
Good.
autos.
Just want to make sure we're good.
Mixed use zoning doesn't allow it happily.
Okay.
So there you go. The other thing I already made you aware of, Jim's position right now. So if you need anything right now, give us a call. We'll be handling things as much as we can, and handling a bunch of new duties. We're looking at RDA support that we didn't do before. Susan's been doing some of that with Tim before he resigned, but that responsibility is going to ramp up a bit. So Zach and I will be overworked, but we're used to that, so no problem.
Hopefully they'll
No
give
heavy
us a-
lifting, Zach.
Yeah, no
heavy lifting. Remember.
We appreciate you. The next agenda, in speaking of heavy lifting, just the last thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet and let you all go home. November 1st is already full. It looks a lot like this agenda.
It does.
It's likely that the second meeting in November, November 18th or November 15th?
15th.
November 15th will likely have items on it as well. I know we're approaching holidays. Please let us know.
I will not be available for the November 15th meeting.
Zach, will you make a note so I don't forget to tell Susan? Or Susan, if you're on your
Sorry.
elliptical watching, which she
And
sometimes
I
does.
may not be available the 15th.
Okay.
I'm here the 1st, though.
Thank you. The first is my biggest concern right now. The 15th will take care of itself, but
I may have to go to St. Thomas.
we appreciate
again.
all of your work as commissioners and the things that you do. Thank you.
I spent
Motion
five-
to adjourn? No?
Yeah.
I have
No.
one thing I want to
Ned.
bring up
Oh,
first.
sorry.
Motion to hear Ned.
Second.
So I am the newest commission member here, and I have no less than 3 times heard that we need more code enforcement officers. So do we want to have that discussion right now, or make a motion, or take formal action to request to the city council to hire
You know, just
additional code enforcement persons?
by way of background a little bit, I have mentioned it at a council meeting. I've mentioned it at every joint meeting that we have with the city council, training in that on an annual basis for like the last 3 or 4 years. And, you know, I think they're aware of it, Ned. And I just want to make sure that we continue to bring it up. They do read the minutes of the meeting. I am confident that they get that. I don't know that, I don't know, a resolution, something like that, that's their job. I'll continue to bring it up, but I don't know what's the best.
I mean, and to piggyback on Phil, he and I have actually been beating this drum for a long time. I mean, we've been on the commission for over 6 years now. And a lot of times it's been in the context of residents saying, how are you going to enforce this? And so it's some of the Buck Sweeney education of, you know, hey, we only have one, but let your city council know. So I think if the city council doesn't know that we feel like we need more code enforcement, there's some challenges there. But I agree with Phil. I don't know what more we can do beyond having Jared collect money out at the station to hire a new one. I mean, maybe with Tim gone, we can hire 3 or 4.
So I'm going to get on the bandwagon also and beat the drum, because
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Murray is
Lonely but fun.
growing considerably, and we've seen several topics tonight.
Yep.
And it wasn't just one of those agenda
No,
items that
it's
needed
not.
code enforcement. There were several. And that's just one meeting. So I don't know, Jared, do you guys have some other guidance for us to beat on the city council? And I don't know if it's only the city council, the mayor, we all live here, and frankly, it's starting to look a little peaked on the corners with some of this stuff.
I think I would just suggest that it's not a bad moment to keep beating the drum, because we are sort of reorganizing. And to be clear, we have a zoning enforcement officer, Mark Bourne's assistant planner.
Right.
He does zoning enforcement. So we take certain cases. Others go to the police department's code enforcement department, and there are 2 of those folks. It's likely that if a new position were created, it would probably go to the police department side, because they issue citations. It's just easier to get stuff done. We kind of do weeds, but then we do kind of really difficult long-term cases when you're removing illegal renters and that kind of thing. We do that, and we don't necessarily need more staff for that. We need a lot of staff to enforce.
Can't we use the cadets, the Murray City Police cadets, and have them drive by and slap Post-it notes on the car that say you're out of compliance? Call your friend.
The visual of that is so cool, but I don't know.
I know. I
don't know that they'd let us use the cadets or not.
No.
Every
my
application
guess
we
is no.
approve has conditions.
Yep, everyone.
Technically, those conditions need to be enforced.
Right.
Yep.
The only way anything gets checked on at all is on a complaint basis.
Yep.
And so unless people complain, that's the first step. Then there will be something instigated. But we all know that, you know, one guy. And that's not his full job description either.
Yeah.
One guy on
But I think that
part of his time.
we all have been educating the public when they come in and saying the only way for you
Keep 'em
to
honest.
to complain about or to bring this to anyone's attention is complain about it. And I mean, you know, the more complaints they get, the more the city council is going to start listening. Like, wait, they keep complaining about all these code enforcement things. You know, it's a multifaceted.
Commissioner Curmudgeon Markham. Maybe what we need is a curmudgeon moment every meeting where we make a formal complaint to city staff about the code enforcement issues that we need to have resolved.
It kind of feels like being a parent at my house. I pass rules that my wife then has to try to enforce when I'm out of town, and my kids, the only way they get done is when they complain. Like, that's what we do. We pass things so that they're never enforced unless someone complains. So
You know what
It's
seriously
a little
what
past the buck. So we told the business owner on Cherry Street, keep calling, keep calling,
Yeah.
keep calling. Well, frankly, that's BS.
That's why I
It
wanted
is.
to
And
put the amendment.
Yep.
and we can educate all of our neighbors and all of the applicants coming here. But I frankly, I think it's more of our responsibility, and all good work for you for making the point through the years. But it's we got to take some stronger action. I don't know what it is.
I would suggest, if we feel strongly about it individually, just emailing our city councilman and the mayor or all the city councilor that, their email addresses are public access. And I think that's a good first step, and see if there is any kind of reply. And if not, then, we just keep trying to find an avenue that gets their attention.
What if we drafted like a group letter?
Group letter.
I'd
And
be
just
okay
said,
with
as a
that.
planning commission,
I-
we're
I'm okay with that. Yeah,
I'd be
absolutely.
upset by
okay
the
with
number
that,
of
absolutely.
comments that we're
Is that
getting
a-
about lack of
Is that a
code.
chairman duty?
Yep.
I think it is. I think it's a chairman.
As the chair, I'm going to delegate that to the co-chair.
No, I think that's a wonderful. I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think it should be part of an agenda where we actually talk about the letter and we make it, and it's in the meeting, it's in the minutes, and it's part of it, because I want people to understand that, we feel helpless at times standing here saying to people, we know full well that we're going to approve this because we have to statutorily, but we have no ability to really enforce.
Let's work together.
It's-
Yeah, enforce number 6 or
Yeah.
whatever.
We just,
Hey, while we're delegating, real quick, bear with me, this is a partial idea, sorry, I don't have all the information with me. But at the APA conference, I went to the ethics course, and in the ethics course, they said if you're a chair, you should be aware of the fact that there's a legal class that we're supposed to be doing online every year to be in compliance.
I go to it every year.
Do we all? But as a chair, you have to make sure we all are in
It's just the
compliance.
Land Use 101.
Is it?
Yeah, it's Land Use 101.
Okay, so, again, I didn't.
Well, and then our training that we do
Yeah,
with
I think
the
the
attorney's
training- I think
office.
the training
It's
satisfies
met.
that.
We've all met that requirement. Okay.
So,
There you go. Darn it, I wanted to task you with something. No.
No, I'm
so I would task you with ending the meeting now. How about
Well,
that?
how about I add that Lisa and I will draft a letter
Perfect.
for the rest of the
Tell me where to sign.
Planning Commission to review and eventually sign and pass.
And
it.
have Susan notarize it.
Thank you, Ned.
Then
Thank you.
email us.
very
Thank you,
much.
Ned. Thank you. Seriously, it's something Phil and I have been bringing up for 6 years. We try to educate. We try to, in essence, almost apologize to the residents because we know that they won't be enforced very well unless they complain.
And I think at some point, the business owners, they're not coming around.
Yep.
They don't have anybody to do it, so.
I can run a cesspool internet thing because no one's going to ever do anything about it.
Okay.
You let us know when you're ready, and we'll put on an agenda for a discussion once
you.
you've got a draft.
Awesome. Thanks, Ned.
Now motion to adjourn.
Second.